Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Kinji Fukasaku deep dive into some more interesting Japanese cinema. Thank you guys for sticking with this series. I'm going to be leading up to the Battle of Our Honor collection. That's where I'm going to kind of leave it just before I get to that point, have a little break, and then come back and do that series later on. But I'm very excited to check out more of this director and to see kind of experimentations going in from the 60s, leading up all the way up to the early 2000s, where there's still a couple of movies that I've yet to see during his late portion of his career. So we're just on the cusp now of ending the 60s era of his kind of reign, essentially. There's still quite a few movies that I've not managed to check out. I put a little timeline here. There's a couple of movies that I do not have access to, so hopefully down the line I managed to find them various on digital, DVD, hopefully might get a Radiance release or an Arrow release, but I have to work with what I got, and I'm kind of making my way slowly through. And for today we're doing the Blackmail is My Life, part of the Titan DVD set that I got, which has 3 movies, including the Black Rose Mansion and the If You Were Young, a Rage movie, which is one of the later ones he did. 3 very understated films from his career, ones I've not had additional HD releases on any of the formats that I was unaware of, and it's great to see a little set from the UK that has some of his films that are very, very hard access to get hold of. So I'm very happy you managed to pick this one up and check out some of the earlier films, at least with a decent enough DVD with English subtitles. These don't have any special features apart from maybe like a trailer or something. So if you do have this set, definitely worth checking out, because it is out of print, it is gone, it is very hard access to find. So yeah, today we're talking about Blackmail is My Life, 1968, which is the last film, I believe, of that year from Kinji Fukasaku. A very busy year from this director, doing quite a few films, as mentioned, a few of us that I've not access to, and this is the kind of the cap-off movie to end that kind of reign. So this is quite an interesting one, Blackmail is My Life. This is more of a dark comedy about a bunch of blackmailers. It's a very simple kind of concept in that regard. It's basically a bunch of people that have come together, a real group. I think it's about 4 of them, 4 or 5. Basically, they are professional blackmailers, and the main protagonist character basically during the start of the film retells his kind of early beginnings, his humble beginnings in kind of comic kind of style, kind of editing, which is the technical aspects from Kinji Fukasaku is just really on point. It is surprisingly quite funny and quite kind of fast paced, where basically this character is basically retelling his kind of beginnings, him being broke, breaking up with his girlfriend, doing a dead end job, and basically overhearing this kind of like little side hustle that the Yakuza have done. Yes, there is Yakuza in the film. Kinji Fukasaku can never escape, even when he is doing a dark comedy about blackmailers. He has to put some sort of criminal element in there. It's just kind of the demand, I suppose, and the image of the director. But anyway, he basically overhears this conversation of the alcohol basically being fake, and not having maybe a certain percentage, or not being classed as actual alcohol, and on these kind of nightclubs and these kind of bars, and basically they made kind of a backwards deal where they're keeping all the actual real stash hidden away. He overhears this. He says something stupid, gets beaten up for it, and then leads to him convincing his friends, these kind of associates, to basically blackmail the Yakuza. Surprisingly, this does go okay, and he does get paid off with a kind of a generous kind of cash sum to kind of keep quiet. They would rather pay him off than to kind of do anything specific to him and his group of kind of friends. They get a taste of this life, this kind of luxury, and again, this kind of very youthful kind of energy and spirit, and he's become a character which is no longer basically a bum on the couch, to someone who's a professional kind of blackmailer, wearing nice suits and has an attitude, and basically is blackmailing all sorts of people, not just Yakuza, but businessmen and kind of rich kind of clientele, and basically trying to tail these kind of leads to kind of form basically a scheme to basically get more money from these kind of people, and even blackmailing the blackmailers, which is kind of funny within the film. It definitely reminds me of something like, which has a very similar kind of idea. That's more based on comment about the kind of the long game, about targeting a very specific person, and obviously doing these kind of series of types of schemes. Very similar in types of its execution in terms of the theme, the idea of a bunch of people creating a scenario and then putting the squeeze and then getting a big cash sum at the end of it. And I think the first portion of this film, I think, demonstrates that to a really great effect. I think the first hour of this film is really fantastic, and I think the energy of the film, the music, the editing, the kind of the flashback sequence goes to black and white, I think was really cool, and I think it has this kind of really poppy, kind of youthful kind of energy the film is definitely trying to go for, and I like how fast-paced the film is. There's even a sequence which they basically kind of infiltrate this kind of wealthy men's club. They kind of have this character opposing to be one of them, and putting himself deliberately in a situation where he can tail back what their operation is. Amateur kind of 8mm type movies, where they're kind of blackmailing the clientele and selling it on. A series of rules have been set place. Don't rip off the same person twice. Don't do the same kind of scheme more than once. And I think it's a very interesting kind of crew. I think the actual cast of characters we have are quite defined, and they're basically a tight-knit crew. They're basically not killers. They kind of make a very clear point of that, saying that we don't do this for basically to kill people or to kind of harm people necessarily. We're just going to rip off the rip-offers. Essentially, the blackmailers, they're the people that can afford to lose some money in this process, and that's their targets. There's a actor in the film called Hideo Moroda, I hope I said it incorrectly, which has appeared within quite a few Kinji Fukasaku films since The Threat. He was one of the main bad guys in that film, and he's appeared within also within the Rumbling Dragon film, where he played a bad guy in that, and he also plays quite a different role in this film. I don't know if he's in any of the previous films I've missed out on, but I also know he's in the Black Rose Mansion as well, and I think he's one of my favorite performances of him so far, being the fact that he's been playing these villainous kind of thug type characters with limited dialogue, but it has a good screen presence and definitely a memorable face. And I think this time around he's definitely demonstrating a bit more of his acting chops, a bit more of his comedic side, which I think is really good, and I really appreciate that. Even the actor who played the additional villain within The Threat also makes a small cameo appearance in this film as the gold tooth kind of assassin villain character. So it's great to see some recognizable faces and to kind of see some continuing performances, and obviously he's liking his very specific kind of actors, especially if he's making about 3 or 4 movies per year. It makes sense he would kind of recycle some of those actors to come back, and similar to Tarantino and Brian De Palma and many other kind of staple directors, which it's easy to work with the same actors in different roles time and time again, because they know your style, they know you're fast-paced, your sense of kind of precision. And I think this one is quite different, Kinji Fukasaku, and I really do appreciate that in terms of him doing something a little different. However, as mentioned, he can't help himself, and he does resort back to some of that kind of Yakuza kind of crime element to the film within the middle act, which does make sense in terms of story-wise, because it definitely does escalate in terms of doing kind of petty kind of blackmailing kind of operations to a big score, trying to rip off other blackmailers and going for more politicians and basically higher, bigger scores, which are basically a little out of their depth essentially to kind of do. And this is something that's been mentioned quite a few times within the going into the second portion of the film, this idea of when's enough, when's the score going to be enough. We find out more about our main protagonist as we go along in terms of information, and some of the kind of questionable kind of dealings he's had, especially within a love interest he does have in the film, which is interesting, and how people are just playing each other and people are using each other for different means. And I kind of like that, I kind of appreciate that. No one in the film is truly innocent, no one is truly a godsend, and it's actually quite refreshing to see some characters simply say, I've had enough, I'm walking away, I'm not a killer, I've had my fun, enough's enough, and then walks, and that's it, it's gone. So some characters do have sense in terms of just leaving while you still can, others don't get the opportunity for that, and some are double crossing and kind of messing around with each other essentially to kind of get what they want, and it all ends not in a great way, let's just say that. So that's been my thoughts and opinions on Blackmailers My Life. What are your thoughts and opinions on this film? What are your thoughts on this kind of era of Kinji Fukasaku experimentation with going from sci-fi B-movie to comedies and dark comedies into gothic hammer horror movies within the Black Rose Mansion? Very experimental kind of little period of this time before he goes back into Yakuza movies again. So love to know your thoughts and opinions. Please comment down below. So meantime, go down for the reviews. Signing out.